Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday morning. Apologies for the late start. Battling a little bit of a cold, so I had to go get some herbal tea from Starbucks, and they were taking forever. So apologies for the late start there. Apologies if I start hacking up a lung at some point in this podcast, but Live TV, we've got to roll with it. So we'll, as usual, we'll wrap up our Chargers and Broncos pregame coverage, and then we'll do our weekly picks and take some questions for you guys today. So a lot of not a ton of final thoughts as the Chargers potentially resting a lot of starters this week, but we'll do what we have to do. Joining me are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, what's up, man? I'm digging the new background with all the palm trees and Fort Lauderdale. What's up, dude?
This is very temporary. I fly back on Monday, so you'll hear the birds back in the background eventually. Enjoy it while you can. But no, I'm excited to get into this preview, everything we're going to talk about today. Hopefully the Chargers are playing Chase Daniel as opposed to Justin Herbert, assuming that the Bengals get the win. And then maybe Chargers fans, if you really want to get into it, can dual screen Tyrod Taylor as he starts against the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, should be a fun Sunday of football and fun Saturday of football. Forgot about the Jaguars game and the Chiefs game tonight. So big games.
Yeah, especially the last one there, obviously, deciding who the Chargers get to play in the playoffs. So hopefully everybody kind of tuning in, getting an early look at whichever team that's going to play. So Tyler, what's up, man? Blockbuster, shirt on today in honor of Braden Falco, I assume, as the Chargers wrap up the regular season, or what?
Yeah, I don't support the current Blockbuster. I have a great Netflix subscription. I don't know if Blockbuster even exists anymore. I think there's maybe one left in the world. So yes, this is more football related than anything. I can't wait for playoff birds. That's going to be fantastic, Alex. I can't wait for I've never hoped and prayed to never see Justin Herbert. I've never wanted to see Chase Daniel, Easton Stick as much as I ever before. But yeah, I hope they're out there. And hopefully by the time the game starts on Sunday, we kind of know the Chargers get to rest their guys.
Yeah, and we'll talk about all of that for sure. Netflix and Blockbuster, man. The Netflix did a series about the last Blockbuster. I don't know if you saw it. It was supposed to be like a comedic relief thing, and then they canceled it after one season.
I mean, that's ironic, I guess.
Yeah,
that's perfect course with Netflix.
Yeah. Also that, yeah.
Yeah, also that. So before we get started here, obviously, a lot of the Chargers playoff scenario here hinges on the chances of the Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow morning. Obviously, significant injury developments out of Baltimore. Lamar Jackson obviously out, and Tyler Huntley is also banged up. He's dealing with a shoulder and a wrist injury and is questionable. So there is a chance that the Ravens, in not necessarily a must-win game for them, obviously we are hoping that they win, but there is a chance that they are starting Anthony Brown, the undrafted rookie out of Oregon, in place of Tyler Huntley, even as they kind of maneuver that whole situation. One of the Ravens reporters that I follow was saying that it's more important for them to make sure that Tyler Huntley is healthy, not knowing that Lamar Jackson is going to play or not next week in the first round of the playoffs. So there is a chance that they are considering resting Tyler Huntley in order to best prepare for the playoffs. So that is obviously, a big deal for the Chargers as we kind of try and wrap up the playoff coverage, if you will, heading into next week.
So the Ravens, they're guaranteed a spot even if they lose.
Yeah, they clinched playoffs. I think the same week as the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I just didn't, given their trajectory of the losses that they've had, I was surprised. But okay, cool. So that's what could possibly go wrong, right?
Well, yeah, and also baked into this whole scenario is the fact that the Ravens, because of the new NFL playoff rules, still have a chance to host a playoff game. So they're rooting for the Chargers and hoping that they beat the Bengals, and then hoping they win a coin toss. So they can get the division champion Bengals as the 3 seed visiting 6-seeded Baltimore. That's the new NFL playoff system considering everything that happened. So yeah, weird week. I guess I wouldn't bet on the Anthony Brown led Ravens beating the Bengals, but at the same time, it's a John Harbaugh coach football team, and they're going to play hard. So I wouldn't, obviously would not pick the Ravens to win. But we've seen crazier things happen. So I wouldn't be shocked, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know that Harbaugh's squad is going to come out and play, and they could certainly decide to play Tyler Huntley. Of course, he is listed as questionable. He was talking about his injuries yesterday and wasn't necessarily saying that they were any kind of big time injuries or hindering his ability to throw. So it's just a matter of pain tolerance. It sounded like when I was listening to that. So very interesting game. Obviously, the AFC and the NFL. Really kind of threw a wrench into the playoff seedings and how that's all going to work. Potentially a neutral site AFC championship game if it's, including the two teams that were supposed to play last Monday night and the Chiefs. So very strange times in the NFL and the AFC playoff picture. They were reportedly considering adding an 8th team and making the top 2 seeds have a bye, which would have been, just bizarre. So a lot of confusing scenarios out there for the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, I'm a little glad for the Chargers. It's pretty simple. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here day after day after day after day trying to figure out these scenarios. For us, it's easy. It's just we play the Titans and the Jaguars next. Probably. Most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I mean, I've sort of said this, but like the Bengals kind of got screwed by like the new NFL playoff rules. The fact that they could lose a chance to host a playoff game despite having a better record than the Ravens by the end of the season is pretty weird. And then obviously they don't get that game to potentially make up ground on the 1 seed. And then there's like some scenarios where maybe they play the Chiefs and they get like a home site or, the neutral field site to game. But yeah, obviously the Chiefs, if they beat the Raiders tonight, which I assume they will, they clinch the 1 seed, get a first round bye, and both the Bengals and the Bills are kind of left out to dry there, which just is an unfortunate situation. It stinks that, this compromise, which is probably the best the NFL can do, just resulted in, the Chiefs obviously, being in the position there and the Bengals and Bills, kind of taking the brunt of it there. But yeah, it is what it is for the Chargers. So they are going to be presumably the 5th seed if they win tomorrow, or with a loss and a loss by the Ravens, then they can still have the 5th seed. But it's good, considering all the movement in the AFC, that their destiny is pretty much set at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like the idea that Schefter mentioned yesterday on NFL Live or whatever, that the NFL could potentially say to whoever is the 1 seed, like, hey, you get a first round bye or you get home field throughout, like you don't get both, and then whoever's the 2 seed gets the other. I thought that would have been a cool compromise too, but obviously a very difficult situation for the NFL to be in regarding playoff seeding and things like that. So sounds like their decision ultimately was having an AFC championship at a neutral site, which is to be determined. Apparently the city of Indianapolis turned it down. They did not want to host that kind of game, so we'll see where they end up deciding. But if 2 of those 3 teams are in the AFC Championship game, then it sounds like it is going to be at a neutral site, which I think is kind of cool, and also kind of gives them a middle finger at the same time. All right, so we'll talk now, obviously, about the Chargers injury report. Again, lots of statuses up in the air in terms of resting and things like that. The good news is that the only Chargers player that has an injury designation this week is Xander Horvath. I almost said Gabe Neighbors. I was watching his Instagram stories, and for whatever reason, I still associate him with the Chargers. But so Xander Horvath is questionable. Everybody else comes off of the injury report, including Derwin James, who has cleared concussion protocol, as well as Trey Pipkins, who does not have an injury designation with his knee. So if the Chargers are going to be playing starters, it sounds like both of those 2 players will be playing. And, they're just really quickly here about Derwin. There was a moment in the All In episode where Brandon Staley was talking to Nasir Adderley about Derwin kind of reacclimating himself. So even if the Chargers are not going all out, I would kind of expect Derwin to at least get some reps as he kind of gets back in the swing of things. Obviously due to the 2 injuries and the missed games and things like that, in a lesser but similar fashion to what their plan will probably be with Joey Bosa.
Yeah, I hope the defense gets some reps in because this is the first real, not quarterback, but the offensive weapons they'd be facing are kind of the first real set of weapons, even though they're still depleted, that they faced in a while. It definitely wasn't, Higbee and maybe Van Jefferson. It wasn't, the Colts with Nick Foles. And I mean, they have good receivers, but Nick Foles was throwing and he threw like 12 passes and got sacked 7 times. The Titans didn't have their full slate of guys. So it's been a while since they really had to face like a legit receiving core. Someone like Judy, someone like Sutton, those guys playing. Just good to get those reps in because it's been a bit since they faced like not legitimate NFL talent, because they're all talented, but you know what I mean, like guys who are more above average. So yeah, I would hope they get out there and do some good things and fix those run fits.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how the Chargers just manage all of this in general, right? Because in the event that the Bengals do win, right, you can really decide to do whatever you want with Derwin, right? Whether that's sitting him for the game or kind of having him on like a Bosa plan, which is just, okay, we'll figure out 15 to 25 snaps or figure out exactly what they want to do to reacclimate him. But without having the pressure of having to win that game versus, obviously if the Ravens win, then the Chargers do have to go into it with, you're going to have to play all the defensive snaps, unless we get up to some big lead and can start to rest people. But yeah, unlikely to happen, in this kind of a game where they just sort of roll by Denver in Denver. That's always a dogfight regardless of, the circumstances. So yeah, definitely just an interesting situation, and we'll get more on this, pregame, depending on which guys the Chargers are going to have out there as a result of the Cincinnati-Baltimore game. But in the event that the Bengals do win, I'll be curious to see, like we talked about in our pregame, how much they play offensive starters, how much they play the key defensive starters, and a risk reward with the potential, with a matchup in the wild card versus the potential AFC South champion next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to the question here in the chat about the inactive players. So the Chargers have essentially 90 minutes before the game to determine who's going to play or not and be, active or inactive. Obviously, they have to decide today which practice squad players are going to be called up and determine which of those players will potentially see game action. So I would imagine you probably err on the side of caution with the practice squad players, maybe activate a few of them, and then at least you have, the necessary depth. And then if it's a blowout, like if the Bengals are, up by 3 or 4 scores, heading into that 90-minute window, I think we'll see the Chargers decision pretty obviously made for them, which is the good thing. But, if it's a close game, then they're going to have to basically decide, right before kickoff who to rest and who not to rest. So, the coaches, the players have all been saying the right things, including Zion Johnson in my interview yesterday. So make sure to go check that out. About attacking this week with the intent of everybody's going to be playing a full normal football game, obviously going in to try to beat the Broncos and have this great mindset. I think from a player perspective, again, they're saying the right things. They're trying to treat this like a normal week, and then they'll figure it out. Right before kickoff, if it is going to be a normal week or not. So, unfortunately, you do have to make that decision 90 minutes before the game, and then, try and figure out depth purposes, right before kickoff.
Yeah, I'm curious if I don't know why the interview started a little bit later, but like Steven was ready for the interview and it took a little bit longer for them to get out of practice. I don't know if they're running through more scenarios or just talking about, hey, here's the 3 different things we're going to do, X, Y, Z, depending on who wins, who's up, what's the score, and all that. So I think they're preparing for all different scenarios, and we'll see what it is. But we'll know before kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of talked about in the pregame show, coming there with 2 different game plans, potentially more than 2 game plans based on the results and as they come. I'll be curious to see how they handle the practice squad. I don't know, for example, what practice squad elevation like Larry Roundtree at this point. So, I assume he'll be elevated today, to join the running back group. But like stuff like that, figuring out going into the playoffs, how many practice squad elevations guys have left, which they'll have to kind of figure out by today. And then ultimately, who's playing tomorrow. And, do you still want to get Justin Herbert some reps, right? Do you want to, have him out there for a drive, or do you just kind of like pull everyone and throw Chase Daniel and Foster Sarrell out there, right? So I probably wouldn't expect the extreme in either scenario, but you probably find a solution that works for you that's somewhere in the middle. Because I do believe Staley, we've talked about how he bases his stuff in sports performance and is very cautious with player health. But, I do think play like a playoff team and playing with momentum is important for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a solution that's kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I think there's that solution in the middle that you're talking about in terms of, kind of more load management as opposed to, full on resting players. And again, we'll see if that kind of weighs out. But, obviously last week they were in a similar situation, and, they were, load managing a lot of players, reps on Sunday against the Rams, obviously Khalil Mack, Sebastian Joseph Day, really being the big two ones there. But, we'll see what happens there. Obviously, Joey Bosa back from injury, also was dealing with a bout of food poisoning. So threw his girlfriend under the bus in that regard. But, if I knew that Joey Bosa had food poisoning on top of being rusty, I would not have known watching that tape, man, because Joey Bosa looked really freaking good on tape last week.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I know. I wasn't worrying about my groin so much because I was worried about some other things. He's like, he couldn't feel his groin because he's trying not to blow it out of his ass the entire game, I guess. Which is pretty funny. And then he's like, yeah, my girlfriend is never going to be my cook again. It's just like, oh man, dude, like just throwing bombs out there. Hopefully she's, I don't know. If I said that about anyone who cooked for me, man, especially a fiance or even like my mom or something, I'd be dead. So good luck to you, Joey.
Yeah, it would be some very negative consequences if any of us say something like that about our girlfriend. So hopefully she is off social media, whoever she is, and didn't see Joey's comments. All right.
Okay, go for it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to move on to the next thing. So what are you going to say?
Nothing. I was just going to keep riffing on the whole stupid situation, but continue to more serious things, please.
All right. So we'll get to our weekly picks here. And then we'll take some questions after that. So again, a bit longer of a Q&A today than usual. Obviously, a little bit different situation. So I happened to pick the Bills and Bengals game last week. So I will be having a makeup pick this week. So I'll be picking 4 games, and then obviously the Chargers score. So we'll get to that after. So we'll do our usual 3 picks each, and then I'll have my 4th pick. So the NFL obviously deeming that game a no contest, and so we decided to essentially make a knockout here as well. And so first and foremost in that regard, great news out of Buffalo with Damar Hamlin. I guess he's still in Cincinnati technically. But the fact that he was able to FaceTime his teammates and actually talk to them, even though it was pretty brief, is fantastic news. So it's been good to see, obviously, the outpouring of support, the NFL doing the patches and painting the 30-yard lines with his number on it. So happy to hear that Damar Hamlin is at least on the mend in terms of being a functioning human being these days.
Yeah, happy to hear that he's on the mend. And, we sort of got the update first that he was neurologically intact, right? He was, sort of moving his extremities, but the breathing tube being out and him breathing on his own again, him being able to FaceTime and talk to his friends and family, just great stuff all around. And, great. It's a great football thing to an extent that his first question was what happened with the game, in the hospital when he was writing that. And they told him that, you won the game of life, which was, a nice response. So yeah, just great to see that all around.
Beautiful situation. I know we didn't want to get to that situation to begin with, but, them spotlighting the doctors and people on the field and just, you really think about it. It's the hundreds of people who are at the hospital. It's the hundreds of people who did the research to do these, to make these certain things, to have these procedures, to have these protocols, whatever it was, like everyone, the nurses, the doctors, everyone online and the prayers and the donations, like really cool moment to step back and see something good in humanity, starting from a really tragic and awful moment. But it's amazing to see what the world is able to do with this, unless you're like one of 12 media members who are complete pieces of shit.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how the doctors also shouted out the Bills head trainer because they were saying that if he didn't act so quickly, that's the difference between Damar having severe brain damage or not, and it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. Right. So obviously the training staff and the EMTs saved Damar's life, and they also saved his ability to function down the road as a normal person.
Yeah, hearing that he came out of it and was, I mean, we really didn't know where this was going to go. I mean, we thought he could die that night, and then to hear that he's awake, able to communicate. Is he talking, or is he just communicating via writing?
He's talking. Yeah, talking. It was writing, I think, on Thursday.
Right.
And then yesterday when he was able to FaceTime his team, like he audibly said, like, "Love you, boys," or something like that.
Man, amazing stuff. Amazing.
Yeah. I said, go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
I was just going to say, shout out to Denny Kellington and, the first responders who were on there, because that's a tough situation to be in. And it's not a situation that you really get to practice, right? That was an unforeseen situation. So, you don't really get to run that through. You just kind of have to rely on your training and, everything, having the AEDs there and being able to handle that situation, which is not a situation I can imagine any of us, being capable of handling, what happened in that moment. So shout out to that. Shout out to Kellington and the staff who was on the ground in Cincinnati. And that's definitely the difference between life and death here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we'll get to our picks again. I have that last makeup pick to do. So Alex will be first this week. Alex is 39-28-1 heading into last week. Tyler is 42-26, and I am 44-23. So, Alex, we'll get to it, man. Who is your favorite of the week?
Yeah, I've been struggling on the picks this year. I bet on Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady way too many times, more than I should have. But yeah, so Aaron Rodgers came through for me. Carson Wentz also came through for me last week. So that was very good to see. But yeah, I will take, Tyler's already put it in there. The Eagles 14.5 against the sitting Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. If they fuck the 1 seed up, I don't know if I'm going to be on the podcast tomorrow. Holy shit. But yeah, hopefully they don't fuck the 1 seed up.
So what are the Eagles scenarios for if they lose?
They could be the 5th seed.
If they lose, Dallas can win. And then Dallas would be the 2nd seed unless the Niners also lose. So if the Eagles lose tomorrow and the Niners win, then the Niners are the 1 seed. If the Eagles lose and everyone else loses, Eagles are still the 1 seed. And then I think the Cowboys, to get the 1 seed, need the Eagles to lose, them to win, and then the Niners to also lose. So the Niners are 2nd in line right now.
All right. Gotcha. All right. So for my favorite of the week, I am going with the Buffalo Bills. There's just no way that they lose to the Patriots this week, dealing with all the Damar Hamlin situation and, him being able to FaceTime the team and talk to them. I think the Bills are going to really be able to, play with that kind of emotional chip on their shoulder. Plus the Patriots just kind of suck on offense. So, I'm going with the Bills this week as my favorite.
Yeah. Good one. I'm going to go with the 49ers over the Cardinals. I said that last week was the lock of the week, and they almost lost to Jared Stidham. But I feel like that can happen twice. Well, obviously not Jared Stidham. So San Francisco over Arizona for my pick of the week. As far as upsets go, I really should just pick the Giants because it's hilarious. Let's just put some pressure on this. I don't care. I'm going to lose anyway. So I'm going to go with the Giants over the Philadelphia Eagles.
Are we picking games in the postseason? I didn't know if we decided if we were doing that or not.
We can, but
we'll run out of games.
Yeah.
Well, eventually we'll run out of games. Maybe we can do spreads or stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll mention them, but our picks for the competition for the jersey have it's always been a regular season thing.
Yeah, and Steven doesn't want to relinquish his lead, and he does.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Oh, it's always been a regular season thing when I'm ahead.
I need to see this rule book. I don't see it anywhere. No, that's funny.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
want to do postseason
Yeah,
picks.
pull
I don't
Zach
wanna-
Taylor. Pull Zach Taylor. It's always been the rule book. Yeah.
There's also not enough games. I mean, we would need 9 games. The only week we could pick is wild card weekend.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I'm just joking.
Yeah,
sort
know.
of. But I'm also down by 2, so I'm not joking.
There's still a chance you could win. I mean, I do have 4 games to pick this week, so.
I mean, you know what we
True.
could do in the playoffs is just do the the
Can
games.
I pick a real game though? Seriously, like not Giants over Philly.
Yeah, if you want to pick a real game, go
If you
for it.
want.
Okay, because it's mostly a joke. We got Detroit over Green Bay as the upset. Woohoo!
Let's go.
Go. Of course, they might completely not want to play and just play spoiler at that point, but oh well.
Yeah. Who's not that I'm going to pick them. It's Sam Howell for the Commanders this week, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. But wait, wasn't it like Heineke for a bit and then Howell or no?
Yeah, it was Heineke for like a day, and then everyone got mad at Rivera, and then he was like, "Fine, it's Sam Howell." I think he's at the point where he's like, "I'm getting fired anyway." So
Yeah. I don't want to pick Joe Flacco. My God, the underdogs this week suck.
oh, the Joe Flacco Skylar Thompson Bowl. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Buccaneers resting starters or are they playing everybody? Do we know?
I don't know because them being
Uh,
underdogs is
Yeah.
They're 4-point underdogs, so I would imagine
assume
that
they're probably
means
I would assume they're probably resting people, or they'll play like Tom Brady for like a quarter. I don't know, but there hasn't been anything that's come out about them resting. But with the money line is where it is, you could probably take a guess.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go with the Panthers over the Saints then. They're the only underdog that I like relatively trust. That they're playing for jobs on the line essentially. So I'll go with Panthers over Saints.
that's been a good one the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the underdog Panthers coming through in the clutch for Steven. There's really not a whole lot left here to pick.
There's really not.
With underdogs.
Unless you're into the Titans.
Pick the Raiders.
No, the Raiders. What's the line on that game? -9. That's
At home.
Oh, it's a Raider. Okay, they're at
Raiders.
home. That explains it. All right. Yeah, there's really not a whole heap of lot of left here. I'll go with the Cleveland Browns over the Steelers again as my underdog
There you go.
pick. There's not a whole lot left.
That's a good one,
I
I
don't
think.
know. But Mike Tomlin's fighting for his winning season. Oh God.
Yeah, and if they win, they're in the playoffs.
That's insane.
No, that's not a win. That's a win and in for them?
Yes.
No, I thought they needed the Patriots to lose because right now the Patriots are in the 7th seed.
It might as well be a win and in then if Buffalo's
Yeah,
playing.
I believe.
Technically, it's not.
But I think they also need Miami to lose too, and they're in the Jets bowl. But I think they need a Miami and a New England loss and a Steelers win to get in. I could be wrong on that. Someone update us in the playoff seedings in the chat.
Charger 4521 says Pitt needs Miami and New England to lose.
Yeah, that's what I thought the situation was with them, but I wasn't sure.
So they just need the Patriots to lose to the Bills and the Skylar Thompson led Dolphins to lose to the Jets.
Yeah. Can I change my pick? I have a much better one.
Okay.
Your underdog pick, yeah, you can change that one.
Yeah, I'm changing my underdog pick. Texans over Colts.
Little Lovey Smith.
Yeah.
See you
trying
later
to
gift.
lose?
We're gonna lose
No,
on the 1
no.
seed, folks.
Look, the Colts have lost all these
One
games in a
pick.
row. The Texans are going to come through. They've been playing competitive football. All right, that's that's what you could say about the Houston Texans. The Colts are a disaster. I don't think that they have a chance to win any football games. And the Texans just beat the Titans like 2 weeks ago. So you know what? I'll roll with Houston.
I still think they're gonna find a way to lose that game in the end, you know?
Yeah. my choices are Deshaun Watson against Mike Tomlin or the Texans against Jeff Saturday. So I'll take Texans against Jeff Saturday.
Yeah, the underdog picks this week are right.
I'm picking the either or. Yeah, either or. Ride with it again. Rodgers and the Packers defeat the Lions to make the playoffs.
Wow, we got 2 head-to-heads out of you guys this week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wait,
we have 2?
just the one.
Oh wait, Tyler
I
switched.
switched.
his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Although maybe
then I switched mine to the Texans. So.
All right. In terms of the quick game, I'm gonna go with the Vikings over the Bears. Not a ton to play for the Vikings, but the Bears are starting Nathan Peterman, so I'm going Vikings over Bears for mine.
Nice. I will go with the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Tennessee Titans. See you in the postseason.
There you go. All right, so that leaves me with one other pick this week.
Wait, just pick Chiefs over Raiders. Has no one picked that yet?
Oh, I thought you did that.
I thought you picked that one and then you switched it? Or wait, did no one?
That's been there this entire time. Oh my god!
What? Oh god, we just let Steven fucking clinch it. Shit.
Yep, I'm going Chiefs over Raiders. I forgot that was there too. Before you said that, I was gonna go with the Cowboys over the Commanders.
It's been a good one. Enjoy your yellow jersey, Steven. That's fine.
Jared Stidham legacy.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I'm gonna go with I need an offensive lineman jersey, so I'm gonna get a Slater jersey. So.
Oh god, you're gonna go with a yellow Slater? Oh Jesus.
No, not yellow. I'm not yellow. I'm gonna probably get a navy one or a powder blue. We'll see. But all right, let's get to the Charger score here. I feel like we should almost do 2 predictions if we know that the Chargers are resting team players or not. What do you guys think in that regard?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, Alex, you're up first.
Assuming that the Ravens win and then the Chargers need to play this game, I will have the Chargers winning 30-13 over the Denver Broncos. In the alternate event that Chase Daniel and Larry Roundtree are the offensive tandem that we're roping our horse to, I will pick the Broncos to win 17-14.
Okay.
That sounds about right in terms of the resting score. If the Chargers need to end up winning this game, I'll say that they do win. I'll say 31-17. So I'll give the Broncos a little bit more of a garbage time situation, touchdown or field goal.
What do we want the resting criteria to be exactly? Is it just like I
think it's what you said. Like Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler are not playing, and I think that's kind of far.
But what happens if they play like a quarter and a half and then pull them? We're in some murky territory here. I don't know.
I'm kind of factoring in the Chargers score as in they either play the entire game or maybe they play some of a game. The rest score I feel like is like it's basically Chase Daniels the quarterback.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, so resting score, I'll say Broncos win 14-13.
What a barn burner.
Chase Daniel's not leading multiple touchdown drives.
It's really sad that Wilson can only get 14, 17 in our estimation. Okay. Chargers play. I'm going to say it's a little bit closer because I don't really think they're going to do a whole lot. And I think even, eventually sit some guys. So I'll go like 23-16 or something because that's an ugly effing score. I wonder what the spread is. For the rest score, I'm going to go L. Let's go with 14-16, I guess. They'll score as much, but that's all they got. Chase Daniel gets a couple of tutties. No, I can't. No, hold on. No. One touchdown. There we go. 2 field goals. Cameron Dickers is perfect to end the season. 2 field goals.
Yeah, the spread is Denver -3 for what it's worth, Tyler.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that to me says that they expect like at least like a half of Chase Daniel.
Probably.
Woohoo! Wait,
So
what
we
if they
just
score 27 points?
with Chase Daniel at quarterback? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. They just finally start opening
Extend
up the
Lombardi,
field.
huh?
Yeah, trade Herbert.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? All right,
Yeah.
so that's gonna do it for our picks. It is now officially time for the Q&A. So if you guys have any kind of questions for the playoffs, for tomorrow's game, food questions, we haven't really done any draft questions, so that's really kind of the only thing that we won't really want to answer. But anything related to playoffs, matchups, food, movies, whatever, feel free to ask away.
I think way up there was a super chat, but I think it was just regarding my shirt. Oh yeah, Solo Man, Tyler promoting Fajoko's blockbuster narrative. Yeah, I think Fajoko, and I think Sebastian Joseph Day was okay with it. Fox hates it. And most
Fox
of the team
did not
hates
like
it. But yeah. Watching Fajoko's mic'd up from the Rams game was hilarious because it's literally just him sitting on the sideline like, why is nobody running it at me? I hate this. Nobody's running it. Come on, McVay, run it right at me. He's just so mad the entire time. He's just so cranky.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Tyler, have you heard anything else from about Rashawn Slater and his return?
No, I assume it's going to be like it was with Joey Bosa, where post game, I got word of that Joey Bosa was back, sent it in the Discord, and then of course Staley was like, nope, no update. And then the next day, they activated him, or they intended to activate him. He practiced. So if there's an update, or I guess I'll give an update, but if there's positive news, it would be probably after the game or Monday, regardless of what the Chargers say. And so I'll kind of know if they're trending towards the wild card game for Slater or not. But regardless, again, there was no timeline. They're just growing positivity that he is going to be on track. We are at 4 months now. At 1 o'clock, I'm dropping Jameson Omar's injury report kind of recap sort of thing that will talk about Rashawn Slater and how he's entering, kind of that point where he could, like, in terms of like a medical situation, purely from that perspective, that he actually could be back. This is medically possible. So we'll, stay tuned. But I won't really know anything until after the game on Sunday, if not Monday. You're muted, Steven, but it's been a really, really nice time.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
Sorry, my bad. Muted myself to cough and then forgot to bring it back. So obviously Duke Manyweather said a few weeks ago that that Rashawn has been getting stronger and stronger. And then you heard a similar sentiment that if and when he does return, it's full speed, essentially, that they don't have any concerns about his strength or anything like that being back to normal, right?
It technically wasn't that he'd be like, oh, full strength and back to normal, but it was, I mean, they felt very good about that. It would be a positive. Like they wouldn't put him out there if he were severely limited or something. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, and there's only like a 1% chance maybe of re-injury. So it's obviously not a great injury, and he is coming back on the faster side of things. But it sounds like if he's back and when he's back, that he'll be good to go. And frankly, he can win with one hand anyway.
Yeah, I'd be more curious there about like the reps and things like that, and just like football shape, because I mean, this is, you don't usually, manage reps from an offensive lineman. Usually it's 100% or nothing. Right. Obviously the good news is that the Chargers have another left tackle that they trust in Jamari Sawyer who's been able to kind of switch positions a little bit and move around on the fly. Obviously a lot of that, has been in college, and then, in the NFL, he's gone back and forth from guard to tackle. So I would be curious if Rashawn is active, if they kind of do have him on a pitch count in the wild card, or if he's, full go right away.
Yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah, we sort of had that situation a couple of years when Hunter Henry was in the playoffs and they brought him back. New England game. That was the year they re-signed Antonio Gates and had him play most of the season as tight end 1. So I'll be curious because you can't really. It doesn't sound like you can really do a pitch count with an offense, right? Technically they could, but it's not as easy to do as with like a receiving position or a running back or something like that. So I'll be curious to see how they manage that.
Yeah, I'm thankful it's not like a lower body injury where you have to like test the knee out or test the, whatever.
That's
like,
true.
I think they do know now in terms of football shape. Yeah, but it just feels like Slater is just one of those dudes, like one of those guys who's going to just be tough as hell and recover faster. And like he can just insert him at any point. He's going to do excellent. I mean, you saw him like on his honeymoon doing pass sets and killing fish, So I think he'll be as close as you can get, I think.
Yeah, I'll never forget, Andrew Whitworth tearing his ACL in like week 6 or 5 or something like that in 2020, and then coming back for the Rams in a playoff game and just like shutting that left side down, full go right away from the ACL. So, I guess there is some kind of precedent for, offensive linemen in that regard. Move on to the next one here from James Malia. He wants to know what the spread is if Easton Stick is starting from snap 1.
Remember last week when I said it was Chargers win 175-12? It's the opposite. They lose by 175. That's the spread. Pat Surtain with 42 pick sixes in a game.
Broncos minus 14.
I would say at least -9. I mean, I don't know if the NFL in Vegas would have that much faith in the Broncos, but I would say at least -9 for real.
Yeah, in Denver. I mean, if it was just Easton Stick, if we're just talking the entire game, yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't know, man. Like all it takes is 1 or 2 fluky plays and a touchdown or a couple, and you can beat the Broncos. You only need to hit 15.
Yeah.
So kick some field goals, throw some Hail Marys.
Again, I would almost rather see Easton Stick than Chase Daniel this week, to be honest.
Yeah, might as well. Get that comp pick on the way out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chorizo Compapas wants us to make our predictions for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year. I assume that's in the NFL as a whole and not just like for the Chargers.
Yeah, we could do both. MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Sorry to Hurts. It was Mahomes anyway at that point, but yeah, it's Mahomes. Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, it has to be Justin Jefferson. No, I mean, who else would be? Yeah, I can think of anybody else. Defensive. Well, unless you give it to a quarterback.
Maybe Travis Kelce.
Yeah, that's true. I could have seen them giving that to Hurts. He's a running back anyway. So I'm just kidding. Defensive Player of the Year. I haven't checked the numbers. It was Parsons forever. I assume he still has
Nick Bosa's currently the favorite.
Oh, he is the favorite now. Okay.
Yeah,
it's Bosa.
Because Parsons has gone like 4 or 5 weeks in a row without any sacks. So Nick is, I think Nick is at like 17.5, 18. So he's got a pretty clear lead on sacks right now. Yeah.
Oh, man. So yeah, that for sure. Offensive Rookie of the Year, probably Garrett Wilson. I know people love Chris Olave for that too. It's kind of a coin flip for me. I think their situations both sucked. They performed admirably. I really like Steven's preseason pick of Dameon Pierce. He's not going to win it, but the guy's over 1,000 total yards. He just
he got injured.
The averages are good, and yeah, he got injured, and then he's on the Texans, so not great. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Sauce Gardner, and then Coach of the Year, Brian Daboll.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Tyler said. I think MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year are pretty much set in stone. Like I think there's certainly arguments you could make for Coach of the Year for other coaches. Obviously, Nick Sirianni. You can make an argument probably for Andy Reid again this year, but I mean, the Giants have a top 10 passing DVOA offense with like Richie James as their second leading receiver, and like Isaiah Hodgins, who couldn't even make the Bills, is like their second leading receiver. It's ridiculous what the Giants have done this year. I mean, nobody would have guessed that they would make the playoffs in year one. So I think Brian Daboll's a run of the way Coach of the Year personally. Offensive Player of the Year, I think it will be Justin Jefferson, but I could see, like Tyler said, Jalen Hurts getting some votes, Travis Kelce getting some votes, but I think it does end up being Jefferson. Offensive the rookie of the year, I do think Kenneth Walker has had a bit of a resurgence, as well as the Seahawks have kind of leaned towards the running game. So I'm going to go with Walker for offensive rookie of the year, and then defensive rookie of the year has been Sauce's award to lose pretty much from day one. So yeah, those would be my picks.
Tyler, I can't believe you're abandoning the Doug Peterson Coach of the Year ship. What the fuck is this? Come on. He should be Coach of the Year. I mean, he took over the toxic culture Jaguars and, has basically gotten Trevor Lawrence to have the best, season anyone could have hoped for, with Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, which we were all laughing about.
That's $16 million a year, Christian Kirk, to you.
Yeah, I know.
Some respect,
but I think Doug Peterson should be Coach of the Year. Yeah, there's some favoritism there, but the job difficulty there to bring the Jaguars back to being a playoff team, to me, was much harder than the Giants being a playoff team. And I know people are going to say AFC South, and that's the only reason that the Jaguars are getting in if they win tonight. But to go 9-8, a season after Urban Meyer burns the whole building down, I think Doug Peterson should be Coach of the Year. If people want to say it's a low bar, it's yeah, but he also had the lowest expectations and has done the most with them, right? And has gotten Trevor to have a career year and all that. So yeah, I think it should be Doug Peterson. Rookie of the Year, you could go in a lot of ways. I was just Googling to see what the odds were for Rookie of the Year. Kenneth Walker is currently the favorite for offensive, and then it's Garrett Wilson. Brock Purdy is third.
I forgot about Purdy.
Yeah. I mean, they probably give it to Kenneth Walker, I guess. I don't know. I don't have
has
a
he
passionate
been playing good football? Is he legit?
Yeah. I mean, he
heard from him.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's a big offensive favorite. Sauce Gardner really has the Rookie of the Year on lock. It's not a conversation. Right. Defensive Player of the Year, I picked Micah Parsons, but I do think at this point Nick Bosa should win Defensive Player of the Year. Offensive Player of the Year, you could probably give to the Jalen Hurts. Hey, you got Hurt award. That's awesome. That's going to be probably what happens. Or you could give it to Justin Jefferson or any other collection of players who no one cares about Offensive Player of the Year. And then MVP Patrick Mahomes on the basis that Hurts missed these two, and that's what changed everything.
I mean, I think it was Mahomes before that, personally.
I don't think the media would admit.
The odds makers, makers that Monday morning had Hurts as the favorite. So
well, I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah, I think that Doug Peterson has had an easier time in Jacksonville than Brian Daboll, personally. I mean, you're talking about Trevor Lawrence versus Daniel Jones. You're talking about Etienne and Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are actual NFL receivers. So I think Coach of the Year is Daboll just because he's had nothing to work with on offense.
Yeah, I mean, I want Doug to win because that was my preseason pick, but also Brian Daboll confirms a lot of priors for me. So, I really, it's a win-win situation here. I'm happy with whatever.
There you go.
I mean, he has Saquon Barkley, who's been playing a top 5 running back in the league. It's not like he has nothing on offense, you know.
But Saquon was barely better than Devontae Booker last year.
But yeah, he was hurt and now he's healthy. That's the difference. So now that he's healthy, a full year from the knee surgery, I mean, he's playing a top 5 running back, and they're, he's done a great job playing around Daniel Jones's weaknesses and things like that. Absolutely. And getting that offense to work like no one thought it would prior to the year. And I don't think it's but to classify it as a Brian Daboll runaway when I don't even think he's the favorite if I look at the odds right now. Just see what the Coach of the Year odds are, but I certainly don't think it's a runaway for Daboll.
I think it should be classified as a runaway, personally. All right, we'll get to some other questions here. Go ahead, Tyler. Sorry.
It's completely going. Computer, I didn't plug it in, my bad.
All right. Jorge wants to know thoughts on the Mike McDaniel rumors about him getting fired. do you think it's true? So there's been a decent amount of smoke. I know Ben Albright kind of tweeted about this, that the Dolphins would want to get in on the Sean Payton conversation if Mike McDaniel is not able to get them to the playoffs. So that's where the Dolphins are at right now, potentially firing a coach back-to-back years. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I think that would be a ridiculous decision. But, this owner clearly has a hard-on for Sean Payton, so I guess I wouldn't necessarily be surprised.
Yeah, it's a dumb decision, but like you said, I wouldn't be surprised because of what they'd like to do and what they've been trying to do. I mean, they drafted Tua and was immediately, they're immediately looking somewhere else for another quarterback in different situations. And, they have a coach they had a coach, and then they got rid of him, and they have a current coach, and now they're looking at maybe a Sean Payton. Oh, are my tables here? Is my furniture being delivered? Okay. Well, I'll be right back.
Okay. Classic. Alex, any thoughts on Mike McDaniel rumors here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be true. We heard the stuff about Brady and Peyton. That was like a rumor that was tied back to Miami for a little bit. So, this more is a question, I think, of what you with Tua. If they don't pick up the 5th-year option on Tua and they don't see him as the starting quarterback of that franchise, and Mike McDaniel was sort of brought in as like the Tua offensive fixer, right, for this year, although there were still discussions about Deshaun Watson, at a certain point in time. I don't know. I could see it happening just because the Dolphins are erratic and make hard decisions like that, and stupid decisions, as we would say, to potentially move on from Mike McDaniel in year 1. But at the same time, it is worth pointing out the Chargers, Cowboys, and the Dolphins were the 3 teams who had Sean Payton prior to the season starting. So, I mean, if they want Sean Payton, they have the ability to go get him. And Tom Brady is a free agent too, which, I don't know what's going to happen there, but that's certainly a possibility, based on, what the preseason rumor was and what this ownership stuff was with Brady a year ago. But I don't know if it's true, but I also wouldn't be surprised that the Dolphins in general, considering a losing streak, to view Mike McDaniel as a 1-year holdover more so than a coach going forward. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. All right, well, Tyler, did you get your tables delivered?
They knocked on the door to say that they are here, and now they're going to bring the tables up. Now, I don't have to get them, but there was a dog situation. So,
there you go.
Just day to day, hour to hour,
day to day. All right, we have a super chat here from Kylan Alexander, who's a new member. Appreciate that, Kylan. Welcome into the membership. Hopefully, you're in the Discord as well. He wants to know the ranking of teams who would want to play in the playoffs. So, I think number 1 on that list would still have to be the Tennessee Titans as a possibility. Playing Joshua Dobbs in the playoffs sounds pretty good to me. And then after that, I do think, you probably get to the Jaguars, number 2. I still would have the Bengals I would at least have them lower than the Chiefs. So I think my top 3 would be Titans, Jaguars, Chiefs, assuming actual likelihood of playing them. Like, obviously, if we could play the Steelers, I would love to play the Steelers right now, but we know that's not happening.
Okay, so I'll go. Titans, worst team, play them. Then the Jaguars. Then so you have Chiefs 3rd as like the 3rd. I mean, obviously it's more of a realism thing at this point.
Because we know that they would play them the toughest.
Yeah. I would still rather play the Bengals than the Chiefs. I just worry about the coaching difference there. I know the Chargers play them tough. I don't know. I would go Bengals, then Chiefs, then Bills.
Yeah, as far as the first round, I think it's Titans and Jaguars, and that's really it. Those are the top 2 teams you would rather play. Probably the Titans, that's the one you would want to play number 1, and then 2 Jaguars, and then 3. I'll say Chiefs because of familiarity, and they always play them tough. But aside from that, I don't think there's a massive difference between the Chiefs and Bengals, especially because the Bengals offensively, that's a tough opponent to go against. I do want to go back to what we were talking about as segment ago. So the coach of the year is per Sports Betting Dime. Nick Sirianni is minus 175, Shanahan plus 300, Peterson plus 900, Dable plus 1600.
Interesting that they would still have. I guess Shanahan has been on his third quarterback, so I guess if they get the 1 seed, there's a good argument there too. Follow-up question there in that conversation. LA Chargers fan wants us to make an argument for Brandon Staley as coach of the year.
You lost to Josh McDaniels. No. No, as far as could you? I guess you could make like an argument, but they didn't win the division. I know that they've had a lot of injuries, but to me, like this team isn't anywhere without Justin Herbert, who I think has been winning or performing well in spite of his coaches. And I feel like I don't really believe, as good as they've been, how much I really believe in the defensive turnaround because of the guys that they've faced. So has he done an admirable job? Absolutely. He's done a super impressive job without any qualifiers. Absolutely. Keeping the team together and playing now in the postseason. But I feel like I would give the award to the players almost before the coaches.
Yeah, I think it's a tough conversation because you sort of want to give credit to Staley and everything he's done through the injuries and such. But the Chargers' expectations were to be a playoff team. You know, the expectations by some people were to win the AFC West. So the Chargers have either met or slightly come under those expectations prior to the season. I would say they've met them. But if you look at what Doug Peterson's done, you look at what Brian Dable's done, you look at what Nick Sirianni's done as getting the Eagles potentially to the 1 seed. Shanahan, going to Brock Purdy, and they're still, a top 2 NFC favorite to get to the Super Bowl. So I think you got to lean towards those options personally. I don't know, like if you were to do a coach of the year odds, Brandon Staley's actually not listed on any of these sites in terms of odds. I would guess he's like probably a top 10 to 15 option. If you were to do like coach of the year odds, then he'd be like plus 10,000 or something. But at this point, I think the top 5 is pretty clear, and there's not a whole lot of time in the regular season for Staley to make it up, right? This is the last game, and I think a lot of it is done kind of around midseason, and that's where you sort of get, you're overperforming teams, and what the Eagles and Giants and Niners and all those teams were kind of doing, and Staley at that time was kind of 6-6, right? So I do think Staley deserves all the props in the world, but coach of the year, considering what the Chargers preseason expectations were and where they are now versus those other teams, I don't think it's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like coach of the last 6 weeks, like I think you can make an argument for Brandon Staley there. But I think the resurgence has happened a little too late. I think he should be at least listed. I think him not being listed is a bit of a slight, but like Tyler was saying, I think there's a balance here between giving a little too much credit to the players, a little too much credit to the coaches for keeping this team afloat. I think Brandon Staley has done a phenomenal job of keeping this team afloat and building the culture the way that he wants to. And obviously as the defense, relatively clicking on all cylinders right now. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think he's won back a lot of fans with the way that he has coached over the last few weeks. But coach of the year, I think for me, it's a little too late for him to make that argument. Again, I think the last 6 weeks in particular have been fantastic outside of the Raiders game from his perspective, but definitely doesn't devalue the way that he has coached over the season, the fact that he's not a coach of the year candidate.
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned like 5 or 6 head coaching candidates, and we didn't even mention Dan Campbell, who is a guy that deserves to be in that conversation as well. Kevin O'Connell, what he's done with the Vikings. You can even talk about Zach Taylor with the Bengals, right? So there's been some like movement in this betting thing. Sharp Football has Nick Sirianni plus 125, Shanahan 200, Dable 350, Doug Peterson. So that Doug Peterson plus 1,000, I should say. So that gives a little bit more credence to Dable, but I think they still view Sirianni and Shanahan as the top 2 in that regard. So we'll be curious to see how that all plays out this week, and then the voting for coach of the year. But I think Staley's had a very good season, but I think coach of the year is such an expectations award that you can't really get over the fact that the Chargers haven't overperformed their expectations. So that's just kind of what the award is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to sum that up. All right, we got a question from ET44A. He wants to know if we think there will be any upsets happening in the wild card weekend. So, obviously, don't have all of the predictive lines here, but I will say that if the Green Bay Packers make the playoffs and they are playing the Minnesota Vikings,
Oh,
that first game,
100%.
100%, you're taking the Packers in that matchup. We'll see what happens there, but I think the Packers are probably, unless they play the Niners, are probably the upset pick of that week.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the playoff picture real quick to see what the matchups currently are. I mean, obviously we know it's Chargers versus the AFC South winner. So right now it would be Bills Patriots, not picking an upset there. It's Bengals, and then it would be Jags and the Jags and the Chargers as of now. And the NFC, let me scroll to the NFC. You have what looks to be Giants versus Giants Vikings. Vikings is some
That's
upset
another one,
potential there. If that ends up being the matchup. Because the Vikings are frauds, let's face it. At this point, going to Lambeau and get stomped by the Packers by that much. The Vikings have always been fraudulent. So I'll pick the Giants over the Vikings when the time comes. And then right now it's Seattle in that 7th seed, but obviously there's the Packers and the Lions, and then that team would play the 49ers. I think the 49ers would be a pretty heavy favorite in that instance, as the 2 seed is whatever team gets the 7. And then you're talking about Cowboys Buccaneers. So Cowboys Buccaneers is technically an upset based on the seeding, but also the Buccaneers
from a line perspective,
we don't really count that as an upset. So if you just went by seeding, I guess you go Cowboys, Giants, and then maybe a slight chance of the Ravens happening, but that is all hinging on kind of Lamar being back. So those would probably be like the 3 that I would say. Not sure if I'm picking any of those except for the Giants, though.
Yeah. What do you think the line is going to be for Chargers Jags? Or like Jags
Chargers -2.
Chargers -2. Okay. I wasn't sure
I think Chargers -2. I mean, there is the East Coast West thing, but I still think they would bet on Herbert as the favorite there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that ends up. But basically, for me, in terms of upset, excuse me, in terms of upsets, I think you're monitoring who the Cowboys play and who the Vikings play. I think those are the 2 teams that would be likely favorites that would have the diciest matchup. Because if let's say the Eagles lose this week, hypothetically, and the Cowboys win, and the Cowboys get, the 2 seed or whatever, for argument's sake, and they're playing the Packers, it's like I'm probably taking the Packers in that matchup as well. So I think the 2 teams that could
Aaron Rodgers owns the franchise.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Cowboys and the Vikings are the 2 potential favorites that I think would be on the thinnest ice this next weekend. All right. So next question, Adrian Whiteside with Quick Super Sticker. He wants to say Sean McDermott for Coach of the Year. I think he certainly has an argument, but like Alex was saying, expectations. People kind of expected the Bills. They were the most commonly picked Super Bowl winner, in the preseason, and they deserve credit for at least potentially matching those and being, the 1 seed potentially in the AFC. But I would have a tough time making that argument for Sean McDermott personally.
Yeah, I think McDermott was in contention for one of those a couple of years ago when the Bills were still like an up-and-comer team, and then he got beat out by somebody else. I don't remember who he got beat out by at the time. But yeah, I think it's a similar problem with Brandon Staley. Preseason expectations didn't really overperform what you were supposed to do, so that's just not how Coach works.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take a couple more questions here. We'll see if Tyler jumps back in or not. But if you guys have any other questions, now is the time to fire away. Winning.
Someone in the chat said John Harbaugh Coach of the Year, and I actually don't totally hate that because that guy's been through a lot. Although I wouldn't pick him to win the award, but man, he has to deal with Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator and being on Anthony Brown as his quarterback to get that Ravens team and drag them to the playoffs is pretty good.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin could also be a legitimate case for Coach of the Year too. NSN, can we beat the Jags, guys? Yes, absolutely. This team can beat the Jaguars. I think this is it's going to be a tough game. I mean, the Jaguars do a lot of creative things on offense with Doug Peterson. They're humming on all cylinders right now in that regard. The defense has kind of taken a pretty big step back, so I think that would be a very evenly matched game. But I think we've seen Justin Herbert perform in these situations at a very high level. So. Absolutely, they can beat the Jaguars. This is not necessarily a matchup that I'm like scared of by any means. I know it'll be a tough game, but the Chargers absolutely have a chance to win a playoff game next week.
Yeah, I'm not scared of the matchup. I think this is going to be an interesting game, if it ends up happening for two reasons, right? You have the Brandon Staley versus Doug Peterson thing. Doug Peterson sort of as the guy, who's been there and made all these playoff runs versus Brandon Staley, this being his first playoff game. And then, of course, Herbert versus Lawrence, who have both been on big college, game stages. Herbert with the Rose Bowl, Lawrence with the national championship, right? So, them both coming into their first playoff game, and what the environment will be like potentially in Jacksonville for, just the nerves of both of these teams. But the Chargers have guys who have obviously been there before, and Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa and some of those guys who know what the playoff environment's like, Mike Williams. But yeah, I'll be curious to see just what the level of nerves and the situation is for each and every player, coaching matchup, quarterback matchup. I think that will go a long way to determining who wins that game. But of course, they have a chance to beat the Jags, and they should. They are the better team. But yeah, that is out of the potential matchups about them or the Titans, the Jags are certainly the harder one.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up question here. Teresa wants to know the juiciest divisional round matchups in both conferences. I think Chargers-Jaguars is absolutely one of the juicier potential playoff matchups because you're talking about Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you're talking about two of the best quarterbacks.
I think he said divisional round, though.
Oh, divisional round. Sorry.
Round two.
Chargers,
I would Chargers Chiefs from a Chargers perspective for sure. In the NFC, man, I really want to see the Eagles and Cowboys play again at full strength. I think the two games that those two teams have played this year have been very, very high level football. So I want to see what that matchup looks like because the first game didn't have Dak, the second game didn't have Hurts. So I think Eagles Cowboys is probably the juiciest divisional round matchup that I could think of, at least in terms of the NFC.
I think if you go to like optimal divisional round, and Arjun tweeted about this yesterday, it's like you would want Chargers Chiefs, you wouldn't want the Bills Bengals rematch. I think you want the Eagles Cowboys, if that's the potential matchup there. And then you probably get like a fourth game that's going to be a combination of weird upsets and other things. But I don't know, like what is that game, like Giants Vikings, or is it going to be like whoever against the 49ers? So I don't know, that's probably a less savory matchup. But yeah, I think those three that we just mentioned are probably the top round match.
Yeah, we could see Niners Packers for like the fourth year in a row, which I think would not be a great matchup.
Jesus.
This year. LDE Bruin wants to know if we think that Brandon Staley will go out of his way to get players their bonus and incentives. I don't think he'll necessarily have to get out of his way to get DeAndre Carter and Gerald Everett those particular bonus incentives, because I think they're going to be the only two players playing the whole game. And DeAndre Carter just needs like the 2 catches, I believe. I think the 2 touchdowns for Austin Eckler, I think, is really going to be the one that's like kind of would be more in danger there, because assuming the Ravens do lose, I don't know if Austin Eckler would even play at all. But I think Carter and Everett are safe for their particular bonuses.
Yeah. I think Michael Peterson tweeted this out, but the Chargers would be the first team, assuming Carter gets like 5 yards or something like that, the first team in history to have 4 receivers who get 600 yards and 3 touchdowns, which, I mean, that's a pretty interesting stat considering all the injuries the Chargers have had and the way they've gotten to here in the season.
Yeah, that's the one. So are we talking about Anthony Lynn and Herbert's rookie season? Like that they didn't get the records, or are we talking about the Broncos game to close out 2018?
Not quite sure there.
It's like I
remember hearing a couple
against the Herbert.
I was gonna say I don't remember if there were any instances in which Anthony Lynn like sat a player and they lost out on like a bonus or anything like that.
Not one that I can remember.
I think people just wanted like the huge Herbert game of the Raiders in 2020, and he didn't get the record or whatever it was. Even though he broke almost every other record, there was one more record.
Oh, was it like completions or something like that?
What was the 2020 situation with the Chiefs game? Because isn't that the one where they had I can't remember who the backup was in 2020 off the top of my head. But they had like a backup play most of that game, right? Maybe I'm just thinking of the Chiefs because the Chiefs were resting. I don't remember Herbert having like an explosive day though, and then yeah, it wasn't a big like offensive day that game.
Oh, NSN saying that Lynn pulled Herbert in his last game and prevented him from beating Andrew Luck's record for most passing yards in a rookie season. I think Tyler's frozen. There we go. Yeah, so I guess that's what the question is in reference to. And then he followed up and said that Herbert needs 1 touchdown to pass Marino in total touchdowns over the first 3 seasons. That is something that they asked Justin about yesterday, and he was like, yeah, I didn't know that until just now. So I thought that was funny.
Is it 1? I don't think it's 1. I think he needs more than that, if I'm correct.
I thought it was 1 to tie and 2 to pass.
I think it's more than that, if I'm correct, because Marino is 98 and I think Herbert's on 92 or 93.
No, I didn't look it up. All right, we'll take one more question. If you guys see one, we've gotten a bunch recently, but if you guys want to pick one that you like, go for it.
Yeah, so just a clarification on the record, Marino has 98, Herbert has 92, because he's kind of slowed down here in the second half of the season numbers-wise. So unless he gets 7 touchdowns tomorrow, which would love it, but probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Tyler, did you choose this one?
Yes, although I might be delayed on the broadcast. So why don't you read it?
Okay. Teresa Compapes says, which potential free agents can boost their case to be re-signed the most with a strong playoff performance? So, we can go through the list if we wanted to. I think the big ones that people are kind of familiar with are obviously Kyle Van Noy, Morgan Fox, Bryce Callahan, Trey Pipkins, DeAndre Carter. I'm trying to think of who else would be Nasir Adderley, Drew Tranquil. Am I forgetting anyone? Any of the notable ones?
Did you say Donald Parham? Because like technically he can be back,
yeah,
but like he's both replaceable and not depending on what he does. So it could be him.
So in terms of a strong playoff performance, I mean we're really teetering on Morgan Fox not being affordable at this point. So if he goes out and has an awesome playoff performance, I think we could probably say that he is likely going to get a bag somewhere else. Kyle Van Noy, I still feel like there's a good chance he's brought back. He's talked a few times about wanting to finish his career with the Chargers, and I think that's something that merits a potential like staying around for less. The two big ones for me outside of Morgan Fox are Trey Pipkins and Drew Tranquill. Daniel Popper did a great story yesterday featuring the way that Drew Tranquill has played this season. So that's probably one where I would say, again, similar to Fox, if Drew Tranquill has a strong playoff performance, we might be talking about him not being super affordable at that point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Pipkins needs to make the strongest case. Like, I think Staley will bring back all of his guys if he can. I don't think, like, just in terms of the sentiment of bringing that player back, I think Pipkins has to prove them. Like, if they can afford Morgan Fox, he'll be back because Staley wants his guys. If Callahan, wants to be back and and he's not super expensive, he'll be back because Staley wants his guy. Is both not a daily guy, not a defensive player. So I really do think that he has to have the best performance in the postseason to increase his chances the most.
I'll be curious to see the Drew Tranquill standing in general because we obviously had the Kaiser White thing last year. Not to bring back any bad memories, but Drew Tranquill currently on Spot Track is projected for $4 million next year, and I imagine he's probably in the range of like 3 to 5, just because the league doesn't value linebackers that much. So I'd be curious if he has like a big playoff performances, a couple games like big sacks. If he can kind of like convince the coaching staff in a system where Staley doesn't value linebackers to sort of bring him back and pay him, unlike they didn't with Kaiser, obviously. So yeah, I'll be curious to see that one. I think we talked about the ones that are sort of on the bubble already.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the big contract is the big potential contract is obviously Trey Pipkins because he plays offensive tackle. If he's able to round out this season with a great playoff performance, then I think that's the most potential money that they could throw around. So, yeah. All right, that's a good question. Good spot to stop today's show. Obviously, tomorrow the Chargers heading to Denver. We'll keep you guys posted exactly when we'll be going live. I would assume probably pretty close after the game, unless we want to do after Sunday Night Football and see really where all the playoffs are lining up this week. But either way, we'll keep you guys posted in that regard. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Can't wait to eat at my new table. Sorry for all that.
It's all good. We all understand what moving is like. No worries there. Alex, any final thoughts, man?
Final thoughts. Excited for last week of the regular season. Hope the Chargers get the 5th seed and lock it up, and we don't have to talk about Ravens, home playoff game at Cincinnati scenarios, or we'd have to talk about the Chargers going potentially to Cincinnati. Don't want to talk about any of that. So take care of business tomorrow. Hope Cincinnati takes care of business. And on to the first playoffs of the GAC run here. So it's going to be very exciting.
Yes, it's been so much more fun covering a playoff team than it was if that 6-6 team had really gone down the drain after that point. So excited to cover a real playoff game. So LA Chargers fans, we do see your super chat about JT Woods. I'm sure we'll talk about that at a different time, on the show or on Twitter or something like that. But we are appreciative of the super sticker today for sure. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. As always, if you're listening to the audio version, please leave a rating or review. All of that really helps us continue to grow our audience in that regard, as does you guys watching the chat today. Make sure and like the video, subscribe, tell a friend, all that good stuff. We do appreciate all of your help in growing the show to what it's been so far. So that's going to do it. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the Chargers Broncos recap.